Hello, everyone. Welcome to Agribusiness Global Live. My name is Rene. I'm the editor for Agribusiness Global.
And I'm Lauren Milligan, content specialist for Agribusiness Global and the host of Ag Tech Podcast that you can find on agribusinessglobal.com.
Lauren and I are going to be co-hosting this webinar, Drone Update 2025, and she's going to be introducing our panel speakers in a moment. But before we begin, we'd like to give you a few pointers so that you can enjoy this webinar better. So we are taking questions from the audience in the Q&A chat below. We're going to take them in order received at the end of a 45-minute discussion. If we don't get to your question, we'll answer it in a blog, and that blog and the recording will be available in about 2 weeks' time. Also, I wanted to tell you a little bit about some events that are coming up if you enjoy virtual events. We're going to be having the Agribusiness Global Africa virtual seminar on June 25th. It's a 3-hour seminar. It's free. We're going to be covering South Africa, Kenya, and Morocco. So if you're interested in learning more about that region and the crop protection and biologicals industries, please join us. You can learn more at abgvirtualseminar.com or go to agribusinessglobal.com, and that'll take into the events section, and that'll take you to there as well. And finally, I just want to tell you a little bit more about if you want to meet people in person, especially Lauren and I, we're going to be at the Agribusiness Global Trade Summit on August 5th and 6th. It's going to be at the Walt Disney World Dolphin Resort in Lake Buena Vista, Florida, US. This is a huge event. We get like more than 800 people there, and they're all doing business. It's a great way to network, and we also have some really great sessions. So we hope to see you there. All right, so now Lauren's going to introduce our speakers.
Thanks, Rene. We've got some great speakers lined up for today's session. First, we've got Rene Haensel, who is the Technical Director, Agriculture and Global Senior Expert at Evonik. We also have Arthur Erickson, CEO and co-founder for Hylio, Inc. Then we have Dr. Stephen Lee, who's an associate professor at Auburn University. And last but certainly not least, we've got Mr. Laurent Zheng, who is the Director of North American Market at XAG. And welcome all.
Yes, welcome everyone. And we're excited to get started. Just to let you all know kind of the format of today, we're going to start talking with about the technical, the drone, the mechanics, and then we're going to talk about formulations. So let's start the first question off to Laurent. With the U.S. tariffs on China and XAG being based in China, how is your company working through those challenges?
So, hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Well, I understand that with the current dynamic between China and U.S., well, many American users, they're concerned, and especially around the long-term support and service of the products they invest in. Well, I think these concerns are valid. So, at XAG, we are an agri-tech company that committed to solving global agriculture challenge. And today, more than 100,000 units of agriculture drones are operating worldwide, XAG drones. So adapting to each country's regulations and ensuring user rights and data security are part of our daily job, not just to a response to the political shifts, but for sure, we are doing something special for the US market. So I would like to say something, including what we've done, what we're doing, and some objective realities. So first, now all the operational data from XAG products used in the US is stored on the server located in the US and controlled by the US company. So XAG can only access relevant data when authorized by the user, and only for the purpose of handling warranty cases. And secondly, we're actively working with top global partners to strengthen and diversify our supply chain and also manufacturing. For example, now in Brazil, the CNH and New Holland P150 drone powered by XAG, well, they have become a highlight in the market. This tie between XAG and another partner, this partnership can be deepened and also adapted based on regional needs. And let's speak about drone itself. I mean, by nature, this is a sensitive technology, and it's unlike some other products, and they cannot simply be localized easily and transferred between regions without risk. Well, any risk, I would say, any approach that ignored this kind of complexity and force localization too quickly will face long-term compliance issue and also short-term ROI impact to the user. And this is not what we want. So in short, XAG take a long-term, responsible, and global integrated approach to our work, and including ensuring the users everywhere, including in the US, can receive the support and security they deserve. This is what I want to say about this.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Arthur, I'm going to kind of ask a question, then I'll take it to Arthur and then you, Laurent. So we're going to kind of go back and forth. So where is there a gap between the advancements of drone technology and formulations? Arthur, that question goes to you first.
Yeah, I think we're talking past each other a little bit in the drone industry and then the formulation industry, and we're guilty of it ourselves at Hylio, right? So we manufacture the drones, software, hardware, but also even we're getting into the nozzles, right? So designing our own atomizers, designing our own hydraulic nozzle systems, and admittedly, we are sort of biased towards designing systems that maximize productivity, right? So like as the drone manufacturer, it's kind of an arms race, and you're thinking, how do I create a drone that can really put out as much product as possible in a short amount of time? Because then you can advertise a larger acres per hour productivity rate. And I think that's like a bit of a trap, of course, and you need to be cognizant of the fact that, hey, faster isn't always better, or like more flow rate isn't necessarily a better application. So I think that's the gap where you have the drone manufacturers in the arms race of trying to just have bigger numbers, more productivity. But we need to integrate better both internally and I think like cross industry with maybe some standardization about what actually is the right tool for the job in terms of atomizer for a certain application or hydraulic nozzle of a certain pressure range for a certain application. And it's like there's just conflicting goals here in a certain way. So I think it's a little tricky to get that aligned, and we're still early in the industry. But I think with some communication with some very deeply knowledgeable people in the application space, I think we can get there. So that's something, admittedly, Hylio is trying to get better at, and I encourage anyone listening to the call that has application expertise to reach out to us, and we can work together and hopefully actually converge on these goals here.
Great. Laurent, how about you? What gaps are between advancements of drone technology and formulations are you seeing?
Well, I'm not going to pretend that I have agriculture expertise. I'm not. So I'm from a technology background, but I still think this is a good question. I can introduce, well, the XAG thinking from our perspective on the nozzle. So this is a good case that back in 2018, we became the first company in the industry to adopt this centrifugal nozzle, well, the spinning disc. And now it has become an industry standard. And why is that? Because, well, this centrifugal nozzle, it can handle a wide variety of these chemical types, including like suspension concentrates or emulsifiable concentrates. While this kind of system can optimize droplet size, down to like under 50 microns for even coverage. And, they're better for variable rate spraying, and you can adjust the nozzle speed, control the flow rate, and control the spraying volume to different crops and condition. So, and also, combined with the downward airflow from the drone propeller, and also this droplet bouncing back from the ground into the leaves, this also improves the deposition and also reduce the drift. So this is why we're using this kind of nozzle and why it has become an industrial standard.
All right, next question I wanted to see. So where do you see drone technology advancing, and what will the adjuvants and innards and chemical companies need to do to keep up? Arthur, that question's for you.
I think you cut out for a second for me a little bit. Could you say that question again? Just
Sure.
make sure I heard it.
Sure, yeah, no problem. So where do you see drone technology advancing, and what will the adjuvants and innards and chemical companies need to do to keep up?
Yeah, so the drones are getting a lot smarter. And I think the hardware's, I'm not going to say figured out, but like the hardware is just going to get bigger and let's say more reliable. But really what's important is how intelligent the technology is going to get. And so that's a combination that's like sensor fusion. So being able to, in real time, go out and use computer vision and other sensors to identify problem areas in the crops, and then create like a bespoke treatment plan just for that issue. And so what I foresee being a problem is um, you need a lot of flexibility. So as I talked about earlier, like there's a different nozzle for a different job. So you might go out and scan a field, and you might notice there's a fungal outbreak, but there's also like a nutrient deficiency, but there's also some weeds, and maybe all these different problems require different nozzle types. So I think in different products for that matter, like adjuvants, active chemicals, et cetera. So I think we need to come up with a more, let's say, versatile system where you can switch possibly like the hardware on the nozzle side to match the application, but even like some formulations that maybe have more interoperability or like some ability, yeah, to swap between the formulations in real time too. So to match just the fidelity of data you're getting and the real time aspect of that, you also need real time formulation changing and real time nozzle switching. So it's a complicated thing. I don't know exactly how we're going to tackle it as an industry, but there needs to be like that ability to just pivot in the field faster to keep up with the data.
Sure. Laurent, what's your take on that?
Well, I think what Arthur mentioned about real-time adjustment of the formulation is really an interesting topic because um, we're expecting much higher level of automation, not just in flying, but also in planning, loading the chemical spraying, and even decision making. So at XAG, we approach product development based on first principle thinking. That means what does the grower truly need and what does the applicator truly need? I don't think they need to become a master in the pilot, a drone pilot. I think what they need is to have, I mean, maximum their productivity and profit during their limited working hour. So that's what XAG is seeing the advancing and the technology of drones will go to is more automation of this whole production workflow. And if you ask me, like, what do we need from the chemical company, I would like to say a case. So in the UK, only two kind of a chemical were allowed to use on drone spraying. It's too slow, and it's 2 years later now. So we really need to develop more products for the drone use and to develop more strong anti-drift performance chemical for the drones, and also smarter compatibility with the variable rate system. So that's a huge opportunity, I think.
Yeah, definitely regulations always kind of get in the way as far as, growers being able to access different kinds of products. With being that said, so Arthur, this question's to you. Where do you see the drone adoption heading in the US, Canada, and South American countries?
So let's start with like the South American countries first. So we've done some work down there. I'm sure XAG has as well. It's a very hot market, and that's because as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So in South America, Central America, they have poor infrastructure, and most people understand this already. But it's okay, they're not as they don't have as many tractors, airplanes, helicopters. So naturally, they leapfrog that stage of like let's say ag tech development and have gone straight to drones, kind of like you saw Africa leapfrog landlines and go to cell phones. So it's a analogous thing. So I think that you're going to see more rapid innovation and adoption in the developing countries because of this, compared to the westernized countries, which are frankly, in a lot of ways, I think bogged down by regulation. And of course, a lot of it is necessary and does protect us as it should. But for sure, I think there's some clunkiness there. And so you have just a lot more entrenched interest in the US, for example, too. So North America, it's like you've got the big tractor companies, of course, that want people to keep using tractors, and there's a lot more inertia. Let's say it's harder to overcome the traditional methods of applying here when there's so many other traditional options to go with, and again, like the regulations are slowing people down. So you're going to see a lot of innovation in South America, and I look to that almost as it's like reversed, right? It's like in South America, in these developing countries, you can do things They have looser regulations because like they're actually promoting drone use because they need to. So you can actually get a lot of insights and data down there, which will then be transferred over to the more, let's say, quote unquote, stable markets like North America, Canada, US, et cetera. So I think primarily you're going to see, as we already talked about, just a lot more automation. That's probably more important for the more technified countries. So here in the United States, we have a labor shortage. It's going to be very important actually to reach critical adoption of the technology for it to be as automated as possible. So you really want to get to the point where the drone is operating out of a self-charging, a self-filling station, and there's really no human in the loop, ideally at all. And that's really important for these developed markets with these sagging populations. But yeah, again, to my point, you have the opposite in South America where there's plenty of labor. In fact, like a lot of our farmers here in the US are from South America, right? So they've got the labor, and therefore they're going to get out there and just try it as it is, even though maybe the solution isn't as grand or technical as they would want it to be. They're just going to get out there and try it because they have to, and then we're going to reap the benefits of that experience from the field. So it's going to work like that, I think.
Okay, great. Laurent, what's your take on covering Asia? Because I know there's a lot of adoption happening in that region.
Yes. Well, of the more than 100,000 drones I mentioned operating worldwide, more than 50% of them are in Asia, actually. So why is that? One key difference is that in Asia, I mean, the drone are more used in more diverse way. For example, spreading is much more common application in Asia. In the US, like only around 15% of the drone operator purchase a spreader attachment, but in Asia, almost every drone comes with one spreader. Farmers use it not only for spraying, but also for spreading seeds and fertilizer like urea. And this also could affect how people talk about the products. So in the US, like they call it spray drone, but in Asia, people call it agriculture drone because it's used for multiple tasks. So, and a great example is the cotton farming. So today, over 80% of the cotton field are treated entirely by drone in Asia, more than 80%. Because from the pre-emergent herbicide to insecticide, grower regulator, chemical topping, and also defoliant, ground-based spraying has almost completely disappeared in Asia. Because, I mean, this means no more damage from tractor to entering the field and improve their yield quality and reduce the cost. And this is a transformation that could offer valuable insights to cotton producer in other part of the world. And so this is a very valuable case for the other cotton producer. And at XAG, we believe that agricultural innovation should start with real grower need. So when we can develop a function and meet the need, combining this global technology with local insight, we can help shape a smarter future of farming.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. It's interesting how the different regions have different needs and how technology will be playing a part in meeting those needs. So thank you both. We're going to kind of shift directions now with our discussion, and we're talking more about formulations. And so we're going to be speaking with Rene and Dr. Steve Lee. Rene, I'm going to direct some questions to you first. We talked a little bit about formulations with the drone technology, but what new advances are happening with drone formulation? And where does this industry need to catch up with the technology?
Okay, so let me start. So from the formulation chemist, I'm a chemist, point of view, there are two major differences between the tractor, so conventional application, and ground application, so drone application, sorry. First difference is, for the formulation chemist point of view, that we have only a small quantity of water available per hectare. So usually in drones, only 5 to 40 liters around this, compared to often 200 to 800 liters per hectare in conventional tractor application. This means we have to provide with only 5 to 40 liters a sufficient coverage of the leaves of the plants with the pesticide formulation in order to get sufficient biological efficacy. To improve the homogeneous distribution of the formulation with a small amount of water, we need special adjuvants. So special additives, which can be used in can, so that means in the formulation already, but better is to use some tank mix. A tank mix means we additionally add another additive to the formulation that is diluted with water to this formulation short before we start the application. Tank mix addition means it is much more flexible. So we can react on weather conditions, the amount of water we have available, the amount of pesticides, and so on. We can add 0.1 or 0.3 adjuvant in that. What are the properties of those adjuvants? We need adjuvants which are able to reduce significantly the surface tension of water. Yeah? Because we have only a low amount of water available, we need to reduce the surface tension. What does it mean? The lower the surface tension of water is, the better is the adhesion and the retention of the spray droplet which comes out of the nozzle on the leaf. It sticks on the leaf. The larger is the area of the leaf which is covered by the droplet, and that's important. We have only a low amount of water, but we need to spread homogeneously the formulation over the leaf surface in order to reduce phytotox, which is a problem, and in order to increase the biological efficacy. So we need high surface activity, low surface tension of water, that's the key. We need here special adjuvants. Appropriate adjuvants are those who reduce significantly the surface tension of water. So for instance, polyether modified trisiloxanes. They are widely used for ground application. They can be used also in drone application. They reduce the surface tension of water down to 21 millinewton per meter. You can also use other chemistries, of course, fatty alkyl oxalates or something like that. But the second problem is the speed of drones. The speed is much higher. I learned 5 to 7 times, but we have experts here, they can correct me if I'm wrong. The speed of drones is 5 to 7 times higher than tractor application. The spray height is 3 meters very often. And in tractor application, we have 1 meter. So here we have a problem. This is drift, the drift of small droplets. Small droplets, which have a size of 150 micrometer, smaller than that, are prone to drift. They have enough time to fly away, and then they are not on the leaf, on the plant. They are somewhere, which we have to get rid of. Yeah, it's bad for environment, for the insects, for the human health. So we have to increase the droplet size. Larger droplets are less prone to drift. And with low surface tension, they still cover enough area. So we have to increase the droplet size here. And now a contradiction, what I already said. We need low surface tension of water, but this means the lower the surface tension of water is, the smaller are usually also the droplets. Yeah? So we need special surfactants which are already available in the market. Those tank mix adjuvants are already also for drones available. We need surfactants which have a slow dynamic. This means surfactants which needs a certain time to go in the interface between water and air, and only then they can work and start to reduce the surface tension. But if they are slow, then the droplets are already formed. So they do not have a negative impact on droplet size. Again, here I can mention polyether modified trisiloxanes from some companies. I can mention some fatty alkyl oxalates, probably also others. We do not need highly dynamic active surface surfactants which have a high kinetic. A lot of surfactants have a high kinetic, and they are being used in conventional formulations, and that's a big disadvantage. They are already there when the droplet comes out of the nozzle, and then they reduce the droplet size, which are prone to drift. So we have a drift problem, and we need to increase the droplet size. For this, we need special additives. And there are already additives available to increase the droplet size. For conventional application, we can use polymers like guargans, saccharides, lecithin, or other polymers. But especially in tractor applications, they are really good. However, they work by increasing the extensional or elongational viscosity of the spray solution, which is coming out of the nozzle. So that means they hold the water film together. Yeah. But for drones, this is a big disadvantage. The increase of the elongational viscosity keeps the expanding water film in all directions together, and this reduces the spray angle. And this is what we do not need. Yeah, we have a low amount of water. We need a wide spray angle and not a low spray angle. Yeah, and we need new additives with a new drift mechanism, and also those additives are already available from some companies. Let me shortly explain this mechanism, 30 seconds. This mechanism is based on additives which are insoluble in water. Chemistry could be glycerol ester, polyether modified siloxanes. Those insoluble droplets must have a low surface tension. Those water insoluble droplets create little holes in the expanding water film, they spread in the little holes. By that, they provide an early breakup of the expanding water film. The earlier the breakup is, the bigger are the droplets, because in the beginning, the water film is very big. And this is, those additives are available. We need to combine them with surfactants, with a low dynamic, yeah, to make good adjuvants, yeah, or we put them in novel formulation, yeah, to give spreading, adhesion retention, and drift control. Yeah, this is my answer to your question. Yeah, that's we have already those additives. Tank mix, they are already partially there. Formulations, I have not too much seen. Yeah,
Okay.
which are especially made with this technology for drones. Yeah.
So that brings me to the next question is, is there a hesitancy with companies, formulating drone-specific formulations due to drones not being adopted as quickly by growers? Kind of what's your take on that?
For me, the question, yeah. Example, what I have seen in India, a wide range of pesticide formulations are already approved for drone application. Yeah, but those formulations are primarily those that are already registered for ground application, for conventional application. This means there are no really new formulations for drones. Yeah, they use what is already there for conventional application. Yeah, this is what I have seen in India, partially also in Germany for wine growing, and in some other countries. Yeah, and here is room for optimization, because the conventional formulations are optimized for 400, 600, 800 liters of water, yes, for ground application, yeah, and they are do not have really a drift problem there, or only a little drift problem. They are not optimized for drone application. Yeah, so here is for sure room for improvement. Okay, with certain tank mix adjuvants, we can mitigate the drift problems. We can increase the biological efficacy. So tank mix additives can do a lot, tank mix adjuvants, yeah, which we put in addition to the tank. But we can also improve the formulations, especially for drones, for the small quantity of water. And here for sure is room for improvement. I have not seen too many products so far. On the other hand, we are living in agricultural environment, and the registration for agriculture needs a lot of sometimes 5-6 years for formulations. So that means maybe a lot of people are already developing such formulations, but we still need the time until they get the approval from the authorities. Yeah. So
Right.
Also this is possible. Yeah.
Yeah, regulations again.
Yeah, regulation.
Long, lengthy process. All right, well, thank you, Rene. Dr. Steve Lee, you've done a lot of research about, formulations and drones in the US. I'd like to get your take on kind of, from what we discussed previously, there's not a lot of you as agrochemical companies formulating specifically for drones. I just wanted to get your take on why is this, and does there need to be a specific formulations for drones? Is that even necessary? Or, like Rene said, there were a lot of chemicals out there. Maybe they're not optimized for drones. But what's your take on that?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me. I think it's a process. It's still going to take a while. The biggest reason is the market. It's a very new technology and it's still expanding. So a lot of the agrochemical companies, big ones, small ones, are all interested in this market. But to be able to justify hundreds of millions of R&D investment to develop the next generation formulation just for drones, I'm not sure if we're there yet. So I kind of echo one point that Rene made. Right now, it's probably more appropriate to say we're just testing all the current formulations and to see which one actually fit drone application, which ones are pretty difficult to apply with the drones, which ones are just no. Lots of the commercial spray drone operators in the US are experimenting all kinds of compounds and active ingredients to generate this experience. I hate to say this. A lot of time, commercialization is ahead of the research and development. And this is just another case that people are actually implementing and trying this new technology. And as a researcher, we're just falling behind. But I do see more R&D efforts in adjuvants, specifically for drones. And I think there are lots of marketing and potential and the needs out there for drone-focused adjuvants. Just to name a few, defoamer is a big one because when you mix chemical at low spray volume, 2 or 3 GPa, 15 to 20 liter per hectare, foaming is a big issue. And also when you take water out of the equation, you're mixing a lot of the chemicals with very little water. The quality requirement for water is actually higher. Poor water quality, high pH water, impurity in the water can create incompatibility problem. That's another thing that people need to pay attention to, water quality, water conditioner in general. And also the compatibility agent is a very important one, especially when little water present in the tank and you still want to mix 3 or 4 different active ingredients in the tank. So that's another area I can see potential for adjuvants to mitigate this problem. And then drift reducing agent, that's always been a hot issue. And then deposition aid is a big one for drones as well because of the drift potential and the fine droplets that we create during the application.
Great, thank you. Kind of following up on, a presentation I saw that you made at the CPDA conference a while ago. You talked about drone application being adopted by growers like exponentially. I just wanted to kind of follow up with you about, from your research, what trends are you seeing as far as drone adoption, and where do you see adoption heading in the future in the next 10 years, based on your research?
Yes, speaking from US perspective, it's a very new area for us, new technology. For example, like 5 years ago, when you talk to a farmer in the Southeast, in the Midwest, about what is a spray drone, I mean, nobody knows a thing. Nobody saw one at that point. And then we started to see early models emerged here and there. They start to pop up. And then about 3 years ago, when we first started the Spray Drone End User Conference and started the training operators, at that time, spray drone was pretty much equivalent to corn fungicide. These two things were the same. And basically, if people talk about drone spraying, it was going after the corn, and then within the last 3 years, we have seen a rapid expansion of the drone applications. People are exploring all kinds of new usages and applications, and it becoming, this industry has become way more diversified and people going in depth in many different specific areas. Now, it's almost like sky's the limit. Just depends on if you can think of something that nobody has ever done before. For example, shading on greenhouse has been a pretty common operation. We have commercial drone operators already received a contract to spray underneath the solar panels to control the weeds. And I know some are actually using the power washing drones to clean the dirt of those solar panels, because if they're covered by the dust, the efficiency to transforms sunlight to electricity decrease about 1/3. And some are using the drones to spread fish feed. This is a pretty common practice in Asia. Some are using drones to conduct very precise target application, going after invasive weeds, or spray very accurately underneath the high voltage power lines, spray around the power towers, or let's just say aquatic weed control. We're seeing a lot of drone applications to control the weeds and algae in all kinds of water body. It could be a small fishing pond to a recreational pond to creeks and rivers, in all kinds of water body. So people are exploring many new operations and applications. So I believe we're still in the early phase of the exponential growth stage. And I have talked to a lot of my spray drone friends, distributors, manufacturers, and dealers. This is a group discussion, and I think the conclusion we came up with, at least at this point, is we are not close to the plateau of this curve. We should still be in the exponential growth stage for at least the next 3 to 5 years, as long as we don't run into significant limiting factor. For example, the geopolitical pressure, tariff. If the tariff has created quite a bit of issue for the supply chain for us. So as long as we're not significantly affected by those external limiting factors, I expect the growth rate will continue at 50 to 80% every year in terms of the acreage we spray and the number of drones being adopted, and etc.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Lee. I appreciate your input. All right, panelists, we have a lot of questions from our attendees. And so Lauren is going to start taking those questions.
We've got, as Rene mentioned, thank you, Rene. As Rene mentioned, we've got quite a few questions building up. So I will go ahead and start with our first one. I'm going to direct them at our group of panelists. This one is from Maxine. Which drone is the best at the moment to spray the maximum acres in a day? And there are a couple follow-up questions on that one as well. Can we spray nutrient at any moment of the day? And are there any weather factors that may prevent drone spray?
I think Arthur and Laurent, those would be questions for you. So Arthur, go ahead and start.
Yeah, well, I gotta say, I'll try to be fair here. I think that our new drone, which we call the Aries, is quite efficient. So it can do about 70 acres per hour, thanks in part to its high flow rate with its pump system and its speed, the speed at which it can travel. So I have to put an asterisk there because you don't actually, I mean, it depends on your weather conditions. You wouldn't want to fly too quickly and sacrifice the quality of your application if it's windier than normal, or if there's other factors like heat inversion, stuff like that. So the Hylio Aries is a top contender. I will be fair and say the XAG P150 I think is quite a good drone as well. So I think a lot of these are comparable in terms of just like the hardware experience. I think where you're going to get a difference between the different manufacturers is like the approach to software. So I don't want to comment on like exact software because I'm not an expert, but I could say like ours is built for, let's say it emphasizes more like the swarm technology and a lot of the back end administrative stuff. So more like work order program management and things like that, which might make your overall operation season wide more efficient based on how you utilize it and integrate it with maybe your existing farm IoT programs. So you're going to get different flavors of software that fit into different styles of enterprises. The hardware right now, I think all the flagship models across like DJI, XAG, Hylio, et cetera, are fairly comparable if you know how to use them. So that's my 2 cents on it without being too biased in my own direction.
Thanks. Laurent, did you want to comment?
I don't think well, I don't need to promote my products here, but I think he's asking which drone can cover the most acres in an hour, something.
In a
Well,
day.
yes, in a day. Yeah, I will say. Well, if you consider he's working like 24 hours a day with 2 shifting, oh, definitely he should choose the P150. But I mean, Arthur is right. This is not a simple question because it depending on what kind of chemical you're spraying, what kind of task you're applying. So you need to do a comparison between different products and then make your own decision because different product has its own strong suit. You don't want to only consider the fastest speed. But since you asked, yes, XAD drone has the currently fastest speed in the market.
Very good. I'll follow up with another question. How is the application accuracy being measured on drones for various applications, and is there an engineering standard being developed so that the accuracy application is being maximized and controlled?
I can talk a little bit about this and then I'll let someone else pick it up. But I know that there are efforts to standardize the measurement of the application efficacy and consistency. And a lot of this is right now adopted from just what you already have in the industry from manned crop dusting. So from airplanes and helicopters, a lot of those same principles are being used to measure drone spraying. So that's either like just the hydrosensitive cards, the little yellow cards, and you put them out in a grid and measure and count the droplets across those. Or the newer methods involve like hydrosensitive paper that you roll out. It's kind of like receipt paper, or a string, and you spray fluorescent dye onto that string and then analyze that. So there's like more and more precise ways of analyzing exactly how much liquid went exactly where across the swath. But these again are traditional things that have just been adopted and ingested into the drone testing workflow too. So it's not extremely standardized. I think that's going to change. Like, in fact, I was involved in a group last year that was a bunch of different registrants and applicators and manufacturers of drones, and we were trying to come up with some standards, but that's it's still a work in progress. So I don't think there's going to be any like official code book or codex or manual or something saying, this is regulation, 14X of, spraying, and like this is exactly the type of nozzle you have to have, and so on and so forth. That's not going to come up until I think another five years or so at the soonest. So it's just a work in progress right now for standardization.
Very good.
Laurent, did you want to comment on that at all, or?
Oh, I don't have it.
Great.
All right, very good. We can go on to our next question. Without compromising confidentiality, how do you see shifts in alternative energy technology impact your product development? And what about drone swarm capability to deploy a fleet to increase productivity?
Arthur or Laurent, anyone want to take that one?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. So without compromising confidentiality, how do shifts in alternative energy technology impact your product development? And as a follow-up, what about drone swarm capability to deploy a fleet to increase productivity?
Yeah, I can talk about the swarm thing and also the energy thing, but Lord, would you like to go first?
Oh, yeah. I have a little thing that I want to talk about because, in the US, people always comparing drones with a ground rig. And if you only compare one drone to the ground rig, for sure, the efficiency is not going to catch up with the ground rig. But using a swarm operation, this could be possible. But really need to mention that currently, yes, it's able to do a swarm operation, but it's not that practical to utilize that yet because you might need more time for loading, for refilling the tanks, and also charging battery. It might require additional labor to do that. And so we're still looking for a better way to do that. And I already mentioned, like XAG way of developing product is looking to automate automation. So we're thinking about how to put other workflow like filling the tanks, also mixing the chemical, and also charging the battery. We are looking into how to improve those process in the workflow. So that's what we're thinking.
Yeah, and if I could comment a little bit. So on the energy part, which I find particularly interesting, I guess I just want to emphasize that, Hylio isn't a battery manufacturer, for example. So right now, of course, I think one of the most convenient ways of energy or ways to power these drones is battery power. That's why all the major players do lithium polymer batteries in similar formulations or chemistries. That being said, the second company hits the scene with, let's say, like a really pragmatic hydrogen fuel cell, then that's something that Hylio would be interested in at least testing and possibly incorporating if, just it gives you more ROI than the current system. So that's just a long way of me saying we're energy agnostic. I think that there are a lot of promising developments in, like I just mentioned, hydrogen fuel cells, hybrid technology. I've been really interested in that myself. We've done some experiments internally. I think that it's clunky. There would have to be like a purpose-built engine built just for drones, which I don't really think we have yet. There's some small ones built for, let's say, like fixed wing style drones, but nothing really optimized for multi-rotors yet, which is what we use in the ag payload application industry, of course. So yeah, we'll see improvements in batteries and other forms of energy soon. And you could expect some drones to be equipping that, or maybe like I think there's gonna be like optionality where it's like cars nowadays, you can have your hybrid model, your EV, or your gas, and I think you're gonna see lineups from the different companies. At least that's what we want to do at Hylio, where you have the same frame more or less, but you can have different fuel sources based on the pros and cons of that at your discretion. And then on the swarming side, it is something that Hylio emphasizes. So we've had swarm technology for a long time. We just got it legally approved by the FAA last year. It's not a linear improvement in productivity, but it's pretty close. So if you have three drones, it's not you're going to be 3 times more efficient, but you might be 2.5 to 2.7 times more efficient in terms of productivity. So I think it's really important. And as Laurent pointed out, it's going to be even more important or useful when everything is automated. So when you're no longer even filling up the drones by hand in between flights or recharging batteries yourself, when that's all automated, then swarm technology is going to be a true linear multiplier of productivity. And that's what we're really excited about. So Hylio is definitely working towards that. We've got the software side of the swarming done. Now it's time, or I should say even the hardware, like the communications, but now it's time to do the nursing automation that we've been talking about.
If there are no more feedback, I can move on to our next question. Is there any interest or support for ag drift type of models for nozzle systems for RPAs and drones? This is the type of registrant chemical companies required to register for pesticide products.
Yes, the effort is there. Global Spray Drone Task Force has been taking the lead on that, and AAA also has project ongoing to update the ag drift and ag disc model. The challenge is so many drones out there, you won't be able to test all of them. And plus, a new generation are coming out every year. Funding can also be a big limiting factor now.
Does anyone else have anything to add to that, Arthur or Laurent?
Not
Nope.
particularly.
Okay.
Very good. Next question I have, are drones AI-based technology which can detect pest or weeds?
Yeah, for sure, that's a huge part of, I think, every company's development right now, the major players. So yeah, you can look at, there's the application side of things, which we're all in an arms race for, bigger drones, more productivity, more automation. But of course, yeah, on the other side, there's like the upstream and downstream of spraying, which is scouting first and then scouting afterwards to understand whether or not you did a good application. And we're all, I think, bringing the same tools to bear on the problem, which is like machine learning. In fact, a lot of it is just even simpler than that. It's just like simple data analysis, linear regression, like drawing a curve across, data and just seeing, what does the majority of a certain, disease look like, and then just identifying that disease in the crop. So this is coming along. As you might imagine, AI and machine learning advancements are really helping this along. I don't think I don't think it's foolproof yet. So you're still going to have like a fair amount of false positives right now with the level of the industry. But maybe in 2 to 3 years, you're going to have like really high fidelity automated crop scouting from the major players, including Hylio, hopefully.
I will chip in here. We have tried this in some of our research projects. I think the potential is there, but the trouble is hardware limitation and also the efficiency. For example, if you want to identify weeds or pests in half-acre plot, now you can do that every day. It's fairly simple, but try 500 or 1,000 or 5,000 acre in a day. There is no hardware or computing power to support that type of detection yet. I think this is why John Deere came up with See and Spray as alternative. So I think it's a promising area. It's just we're not there yet, mostly because of the hardware limitations. And also another point is drone is not the solution of everything. For some of the pest detection, particularly let's say insects deep in the canopy of a crop or disease lesion inside the canopy, you won't be able to see them from the sky. Ground rover, like fully autonomous ground rover with cameras probably would be the way to go for those type of pests and disease, or very small weeds underneath the canopy.
Great, thank you. Lauren, did you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, sure. So my next question, what is your opinion, and that's directed at the group of panelists, your opinion for drone application in the future in terms of government regulation, and how about concerns for chemical drifting and endangered species protections?
I think maybe I can not completely answer the question, but for instance, I give you an example about drones. In Europe, more or less, they are still forbidden. Yeah, so they are allowed only in very small areas for vine growing or something like that. Yeah, we have no drones here, completely in Europe. Yeah, and the problem is really what our authorities fear here in Europe is the drift. It's the drift problem. Yeah, and the drift problem is not solved so far. Yeah, there are already additives available, but the farmer has also must use them. Yeah. It is not mentioned in the regulatory that you have to use this and this adjuvant to prevent drift. Yeah, so and this is something what authorities fear. So as I said, from the point of view from Europe, yeah, we are still it's black area here. It's forbidden to use those additives, and really the problem is the drift. And I want to jump in about nozzle types. Flat fan nozzles, yeah, behave completely different than the rotary nozzles, so which are mentioned here. So this we have found out when we worked with universities together. So drift control additives, which works well with flat fan nozzle technology, does not work with the rotary nozzles. So that means also here a lot of work has to be done. Yeah, so I mean rotary nozzles, the spin disc nozzles. Yeah, there is a complete different. They behave different. The mechanism here to prevent drift, yeah, is for sure different. We need here adjusted adjuvants. So this makes it also again in Europe difficult to get here allowance or approval for formulations, because for sure you have to provide also an answer how to reduce the drift. Yeah. So, and I think also globally this is a problem. Yeah. But I answered the question from the point of view of Europe. Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything to talk about with regulations or concerns with chemical drift? Okay. I just wanted to remind the viewers that if you do have a question, please put your question in the Q&A at the bottom, and then we'll answer them in the order received. We've got about 6 minutes left, so we'll probably take about 1 or 2 more questions. And if we haven't gotten to your question, we will answer it on a blog in the next couple weeks. So, Lauren, did you want to ask the next question?
Sure. The next question I have is actually directed at Rene. So Rene, you mentioned that the polymer-based DRA is also reduces spray angle. Is this based on hydraulic nozzles, or is it the same for the spin disc nozzles?
Exactly. This is a good question, and I think I answered the question already. So all the trials which I know and which my company has done, Evonik, and also some other companies, the additives which can reduce drift are effective for flat fin nozzles. I have never tried so far spin disc nozzles or rotary nozzles, but I have heard from some professors from university that, as I said again, that they behave completely different, to flat fin nozzles. So that means that probably additives which works really good to prevent drift, so to increase droplet size in flat fin nozzles, must probably they do not work with the spin disc nozzle technology. And this is already 40% of the Brazilian market, as I know, is the spin disc nozzle technology. So, and we do not know how our additives, tank mix adjuvants, which prevent drift, works also in those nozzles. So I have no idea, to be honest. That's a really difficult question. Sorry for that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. My next question is also aimed at you, Rene. Would a better formulation for drones fit to a spot spray tractor machine?
Probably not, because the good formulations for drift, must be optimized and adjusted for drones, must optimize and adjusted on drones. It means on the low water volume. So, on low water volume, and they must adjust it to the high speed, and as I said, also to the nozzle types. And this is different to spot spray tractor machines and so on. So we must be aware, and this is already, I think, what Arthur said, that the formulations which we dilute in only a low amount of water, have at the same time a much higher amount of surfactants, so much more foam will be inside. So we have to increase the amount of defoamer, which has an impact on stability of the formulation and so on. And this will also have an impact later on the drone application, on drift and so on. So if we optimize something for drones, we does not optimize necessarily for other application fields. That's my answer to this. Yeah.
All right, we can go ahead with one more question, I think. And this one is directed at our group of panelists, no one specifically, so whoever would like to take it. Why does it seem like commercialization tends to get ahead of R&D work? And how can people make the drone application feasible in the fields without research or supported data?
All right, I'll go. I think this is because something I said, so I'll try to answer the question. All right. I'll give you a few examples. For some of you know the story of dicamba in the US. I mean, if you don't, you really need to Google it. It's very interesting. It's unprecedented in any of the agrochemical, the history of agrochemical industry, right? So if you ask, do we know enough about dicamba as a molecule? Do we know enough about dicamba drift before 2015, before Extended Max Engineer had a label? Yeah, we know some, but do we know enough? No. And then commercialization started, right? Dicamba drifted all over the place, was flying the whole Midwest, hitting people's yard, hitting the trees in the state park, hitting specialty crop farm, vineyard, orchard, all over the place. All right. So would you call that a case of commercialization gets ahead of R&D? Probably. And also looking at all the AI or this AI revolution. I mean, R&D is definitely fueling all of the industry progression, with AI, but do we know enough about AI? Do we have regulations to properly regulate all this new technology? I mean, have we identified all the potential risk with AI? It's another case that we see AI basically showing up in daily life, all over the place, in different ads, in different software. I mean, even your Google, there will be like AI response on top of it, which can be quite helpful. But do we know enough about AI to utilize it at this level? you can say it's a gigantic experiment without a check, without a non-trivial check, right? So this will be my response why I say the commercialization gets ahead of R&D, just because there is no way we can research all of the question ahead of the time and bulletproof the system. Even as a researcher for over 20 years, I still don't believe that's possible. So it's always learn as it goes, if that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to ask when we skip one question, I just want to make sure we get it answered before we end. Considering currently a viable formulation, which of them are more suitable for drone application? SC, OD, EC, SL, WP, WG? Rene, do you want to answer that really quick?
I try to answer. I think SC formulation are the most effective currently. Yeah, OD formulation are always difficult to handle, so they are not easy to handle. So I think with SC formulation, and it is the best currently for, and they also have some drift preventing properties due to the solid particles inside. Yeah. OD formulation I do not see there currently. EC formulation I have not seen. There might be also a problem with the low dilution rate in water with ECs. Yeah, so SCs, probably also SLs, are the most common formulations which I have seen so far, from my point of view. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for answering that question. All right, well, we are out of time. I want to thank the panelists, thank Laurent for co-hosting with me, and thank you all for joining us for this discussion. So I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. And again, this recording and the questions will be answered in about 2 weeks' time in a blog and recording. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.